start, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining. I have a number of my colleagues here from CORE join me as well. So that's background noise. And I want to thank everyone from CORE actually for coming, because that's a big chunk of our company, and it's nice to see interest in UX here. So I'm you from sunny Canada today. So that's why. I mention that even though this presentation was written on a Mac and tested with machine, but when we got in space, we realized some font wrapping issues. So that was tested more. So just talking about some general UX stuff, and some people might not be familiar with UX. And transition to just talking about ways and strategies that anyone can use, actually, regardless of their discipline of their career. Finish up with some UX resources to help start it or stay current with UX. So UX people are storytellers, but I tend to use a lot of metaphors. So hopefully it won't be too distracting to some of the work in the room, but just thought take away from this session. Just a different way of thinking about some things that you can put to a career, and then energy and the momentum to get you going. This time is a way to start thinking about your career, maybe recalibrating a little bit. So maybe this can go in a bucket. That's hurting, because some of the is right. We're flexible. Some people are probably learning about my new title for the first time. So I came on to CORE in October as a senior UX designer, and I'm pleased to have been made the associate director of UX. So these guys are the formal emails here at CORE, which is fine. Just an information architect at BlackBerry, and I worked with their group for a short while as well. This is stuff that I love UX, and that I've done myself that I'm sharing with you. So just to let you know that I haven't done myself. So I mentioned, probably corny, but growing all the time, and having challenges, and I find that UX is something that you're fearless, because sometimes you live outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but that's grow anyway. So it's another UX that originally was a 3-hour workshop that I had the opportunity to do Flexible, which is a UX conference in Ontario, and I guess just some potty words and set some expectations, and someone pointed that I didn't have a trucker mouth for more of a session, but I'll tell you, I swear at least once. UX stuff. Some of this might be familiar to you guys, but UX people like with pictures, and James Garrett, or this draws on diagrams done by Jesse James Garrett, which is text heavy. I like this one. It's a useful one. I like this one because it shows how is a foundation for a lot of the activities that we do when we're creating solutions for people. So this is something that the disciplines of information architecture and content strategy and information or interaction can rest on top of, and that design is sort of the layer on top of that. So use foundation construction, you can think of information architecture, plumbing, and some of the interior walls. Lots of different illustrations you can find that depict user experience. Or more of those because it actually tells us what the outcome should be if we're doing a job as a UX practitioners. So these aspects of the systems that we design. Because I feel I fit into this, and so on the one side there's a technology focus, on the left side there's a human focus. And these three areas of information design, interaction design, and research. So you guys can take it in. So the designers, he said that they focus on structure and interaction, and they're not usually concerning themselves with the really fine details of the design. Now, when I in the fall out to some of the other presenters and some questions about how the discipline and different of the people who do the work, and really a real definition. So we solve problems for people with technology or services. That's my mom, and she would know what it means. So she hasn't. It's be difficult for her when I tell her I have a new title because she still hadn't totally my first one and couldn't describe it to someone as much as I tried to help, because it's a good and we are doing this for people after all. He made the distinction between storytellers and artisans. I think it actually fits well with the program that we just looked at. Is why we view as what a UX practice characteristics a UX practitioner would have. So and important because we're doing these things people user focused to understand what our users need, and there is a big strategic component because we can form requirements and help us understand what we need to build and define the problems that we need to solve, not just a downstream activities. Artisans. So these are craftspeople who are really message or crafting a design and making it as possible, but in a way that's informed by some of the research that a UX practitioner can provide. So often they want to know about UX deliverables, and sometimes the sense that they're just looking for the list of things that you produce. As tidy as that, as many of you probably know. So he gives a sense of some representative deliverables, but some exhaustively and problems that you're solving. It's like you said in schools, you put for every particular project, depending on the build and create. And that's not I've introduced a few concepts to you and told you, so take a minute and maybe think about where you fit. I fit in research and design, influence visual design, and influence maybe the messaging to our users. And think about hopefully what every day is interesting to you. And then just going to move on to the career stuff now. Start by just mentioning what recruiters are looking for, because when I to this, I had an opportunity to do a panel discussion with a recruiter about careers. Had conversations with her around what she looked for when she's hiring for you, just generally. So this isn't new, but if you're a particular job, your application, your resume, and your cover letter should keywords and that mapping very explicit for evidence that you have the experience that they're looking for, and be through letting deliverables that you've provided in text of your projects and some investment. So none of this is surprising, but it's probably repeating just to be complete. So I reached out to some of the other presenters and asked them for feedback. And what are you after when you're hiring someone, or of what you appreciate in a colleague? And so frame it some of the soft skills. This is very much just what are you looking for? And so you see, they need to know Actor, they need to know these framing tools. And don't see, well, they absolutely have to know how to make these deliverables. This is all soft skills. Need to speak to the process. So back to this notion that as UX practitioners, we're storytellers. We should create our telling abilities by telling stories. So this gives you a sense of the ones that really came to the fore. And it's interesting for me that curiosity was one of the big ones. When I spoke to their recruiter, she said, "Oh, you need to be someone I can take home and eat with my grandmother." But so what's a deal killer for you guys? And what is disappointing is how many actually put up and don't, because it's the impact of this behavior in organizations, but it causes people's ability to do good work, and it hits, there are a lot of negative repercussions to allowing even one or two people to exhibit these characteristics to be in a workplace. I am a manager at my last job, and we have conversations about, what, and this is what it came down to. So if you're every day, you shouldn't be posting. You should really care about what you're doing. Important to communicate well, and we've certainly heard that from some of the people are looking for. Keep a sense of humor. That's a good way to build rapport, get through maybe some tough situations. And so my girl geeked in, her daughter was there. She's 12. She was crying, but she heard me say that, of course. I don't know. So interesting slide to me because I interviewed for my new position that I'm currently in, and so I captured as my goals at the time when I was working at my previous role. It was look at this and realize that actually at Quarry, where I work now, and I'm not such. So just take care of career growth and myself in a direction that's meaningful to me. So I'm not saying you have to do any of this business, but I'm just letting what I found helpful. Before you start defining it, you have to own it. You have to realize that it's yours. Own your career. It better be somebody you trust, and who better than yourself. And then form yourself or with your manager to get in to say, this is the direction I'm going in. And then so make sure you capture it for yourself and for the people in your organization. And also to try to start keeping track of some accomplishments and some of the things that have gone not so well, so you can be able to make sure it's the right one. And then it's a really interesting discipline because there's a lot on all the time, but that's true. So it's good to not get complacent about your methods or that you're proposing because it's a movement, and a lot of smart people are thinking about this all the time, and it's that. And then something professional questions, people that you really get something by just being around and can tell that they make you grow in unexpected ways. So, and it does could be someone communicates really effectively, or articulate emails, or who knows that to clients really well. Like, there's many ways that this makes you think differently and inspires you. Just try to have people like that around. That's just, once you start placements, then you're kind of missing out because the job is everything. Don't get complacent. You have to keep staying. I'm sorry, it's just such a great mustache. Let's have various slides. So you plan, you record your success, maybe some of the proud of, best things, and then you recalibrate. When I was at my previous company, an information architect, one of my goals was to transition. I had a UX group as focused on, and I went to the UX group, and then I realized actually that I had some really unique opportunities there, and no one was doing some of the UX work on a really interesting website. I had the opportunity to for myself and expand for it. So I chose to stay where I was. Own your career, like be your own self. Your mentor, the person you report to, that's your and that's someone that you work with to help there. But you have a good sense of where you want to be. And then you need meaningful to you. And you might find that what you thought was really interesting is less interesting, but you found other thing that's more interesting. So I mentioned a few of these things, but I think it's to create opportunities for yourself. So I asked her to review this put a slide that says make your own boss. Because that's the thing I would always say to her, like, this is something I try to do. So there are different, it really depends on where you are. But often at work you can find gaps for some opportunities where maybe they're thinking actively about UX yet. Maybe they don't know about SEO, or there are lots of different ways that you can and stretch a little bit and start flexing muscles. Find opportunities. So if you volunteer somewhere, or make your own assignments. So I've done, except for one too. So for a year, I created a website for Trail. Did some work for a start, help them an expert review to help them understand some of the issues with the site they were creating. To get exposure to this, make it this way because you can just start doing it yourself and maybe sharing it with a mentor or a few people that you trust. I mean, this is what I saw. I saw the mandate so that I didn't look like I was sort of got things that nobody wanted. Um, and it's doing the work, even if it's small deliverables, and people see the difference it can make, then enforcing and value, you build credibility, find that maybe other people are asking you to get engaged. Certainly at my last company, bono, if you have a cause that you really believe in, that's something you could help out with. With I was thinking, I wanted to maybe reposition myself, treat my resume and portfolio as a design problem, and because doing that, like nobody's doing that, but I was like, yeah, I just thought convey, and then I designed a template, and then I created a design language that I all of the artifacts that I was using to present myself. So the wrap wasn't there. My things in my portfolio, all of that looked like a very cohesive, almost personal brand. If it has at all, if anyone is interested in UX, they probably have certain sites that make them, and make would take okay, what is the this and how would I make it better? And that's okay. Well, I'm a user of this site. I found these issues with it. Here's how I would propose to enhance it. And that's a story you can bring to an interview and a way to demonstrate that you have that mindset and that you're able to tackle those problems. So we mentioned storytelling a couple times, but help illustrate the story. And success are good, but so are challenges, because it shows that you're resilient and that you know how to recognize issues and address them. And that can tell part of your story. And I the position that I'm in currently, I actually use presentation because about me as a UX practitioner, walked through it with the two of the people who interviewed me for my current role. So you choose to share as well. It's something that I mentioned 2 years ago when I started working on. I had what I called my career path mentor, and he always asked me to prioritize, and he said, do anything else, just get your profile up there. And if you don't have one, it's a really important tool for looking for jobs, but also there are groups there that can help you as a practitioner. You can get inspired by how other people are positioning themselves and what they're saying about themselves. And be active on LinkedIn. That's the find certain positions. So I'm saying for the just sitting room here, and it's always good to think about to try to anticipate obstacles. And the obstacles it might be, or it's reluctance that you have. So it's good to keep those in mind, because then when you have strategies, you can and you'll be more likely to be successful. Okay, so to just the resources, and these are just some ways of information on UX, either because you're starting out and you're interested, or you plan and you just want to see my resources. So there are people to UX, and this is not on the list. My discipline's not on this list. I have a writing background. I've taken courses around cognitive science and human interaction, and credits short of an information science degree, but then I I made a decision to go. So I was studying this for this information science degree. I had J.D. Neal, and he was talking about the formal disciplines and working in libraries. And so the S degree is very important in those environments. And he was writing about how, these feral people, because they have a lot of energy that they can bring into the environment. So these are people by feral who learn discipline in the of work and building up the expertise that way. And I really like the title because that's how I did start that degree, and then I found that in some ways it was rigid, or I courses I needed in time to solve problems I needed to solve. So I was doing it anyway, and then considerations made it less practical for me to finish. So I really love school. I actually call it my 7-year itch because that's when I go back to school. But a lot of useful ways to the Unicorn Institute is anymore, but I think it crept up in the summer, and that's a prize with Leslie Inman, who's a PhD, and they recognize the gap between what students were equipped with when they completed a degree and what professors were looking for when they were hiring people. And I think it depends on the program, because certainly a lot of students there seem really engaged and staying out in the community and going to lots of events and are maybe stronger at providing real world scenarios and people the chance to try some of these, to try to hone these skills. Still a little uneven. So, and this is skills that people are looking for when hiring UX practitioners. So these are important skills. Well, so consulting environment now, and it's especially important to be able to communicate well to your clients and the work that you're doing, and ability for your organization. But it's important in corporate environments where maybe you're actually people outside of your organization, and you're still needing to influence through presenting well. I haven't, but they're all credible. I've taken group that's by some good folks in Canada, so we need some Canadian content here. This is good conferences. Dorothy IA Institute is one of my first UX conferences, and really interesting, lively, where a lot of and I came away quite energized. So I don't know how many Canadians have joined the call, but that's a nice local-ish one where it's actually very cost-effective. They get top-notch speakers, and then in the neighborhood as well. It's UXP. One of the IXDA, so I should have fact-checked that for it. So some of these, the fees are, but in their variations and programs, a lot of them. Conferences in 2014, so that's so many ways that you can be mentored. Can be just a supportive group, going to a local group and hearing the conversation and speaking to people who are in the discipline longer. You can find work. It can be remote. So I Skype, Bev Corwin mentors. So let's have a mentor, because not just for giving back to the community, but also because you as well. So there's an energy there. You can see their eyes, and they have a different perspective than you do, and it's just good. I'm gonna. Who knows me would ever find me corny. I really believe in creating around you and community and sometimes you could, I never do it just to help for yourself, but sometimes you might be like, so this is just a sampling, but these are some I like to look at. Good for mobile first, super blue ski, general website. Whitney Hess is maybe not familiar to everyone. She was a UX consultant. I think she moved on to doing, but she has interesting work around empathy. So that's just a little different. You might want to check out. It's helpful. That's really active in Twitter. So there's going on at any point, probably overwhelmingly so. Check out who other people choose to follow and see you. So you might learn about some new people. And because I for entertainment as well as for professional growth. So and they're public. So if you guys are curious about who I chose to follow, you can check that out too. I'm at that panel discussion. I got there. I was driving. I was so happy. And flat tire, so the flapping sound that you don't want to hear when you're on your way to engagement. So, and I don't parking lot when you have a flat tire, because the smell will start to get to you through the drive-through. Will laugh at you. Again, this apologies for the layout issue. The Mac version. Forget it's a conversation. So Alan Cooper, who's the dude, right, or a dude, a big UX, and so I follow him. Well, he tweets stuff I love. So people here who can't read, he said, I walked into a bar and I asked for a double entendre, so the bartender gives it to her. So, which, and so I just like me, and he responded, and he's like, oh, Alan Cooper, I do that one. So don't forget it's a conversation. I think if you forget, because sometimes like, oh, it's Alan Cooper, he's very, and it feels close, but it's closer than you think, which is shout to people in Athens and people in this area about sharing their time. So here, hey, that set up really well. Just a sampling of the people I follow on Twitter. After that, she does content strategy work. She's Canadian, Jeff Park, Canadian too. She's in the UX community. Do a shout out for the local and information architects. He wrote the Polar Bear book. So just to check out. Who likes Kristen is more content. Steve Portugal has interest to say about interviewing people. Eric Rajan, some interesting things to say, and he cooks a lot in Denmark. Stuff and usability. And for Bluesky, I mentioned before, Whitney has Beck 10 to some of you see a conference and interesting person for a museum, and she does something called Experiment, where have little question sheet, little research questions, and to get the community engaged in those. So she's a person. These are, I tried to think of books that would be helpful to people who are in the discipline, or maybe versus people who might not be aware of. So will kind of everyday things. It's a really great book on user experience. It used to be called the, so it talks about the science. Weinstein, her book, treatment of cognitive science too. It's so things, and so it's pages for each principle. She illustrates it really well. So it's a nice approachable one. We colleagues to UX Camp Ottawa. We had a road trip, and it was book along, and every once in a while, one of us would read one of the principles. So, sketching in UX. And we have to get tough to or we have visualization, and these books are quite beautiful. Well, this book on really recommend is the first book, the Steve Krug book, because it's so approachable, and his tone of mild outrage is kind of compelling. And, it's a great book, just as the first introduction of some of the principles around user experience, usability, and another usability experience. So, we talked about deliverables and how it's a bit of an art to figure out which ones are appropriate, which activities do you want to perform to depend. So these are really, really, you understand. You might, when a focus group is useful, but it would be less useful or less responsible actually to do. So I think actually the communicating design might be onto its third edition. Starter kit. So when this is what I give them to take away and as an introduction to the discipline. I'm sure other people have their own preferences, and I'd love to hear about them actually, but this is people. So we've talked about some general UX. We've talked about strategies for career. We walked through a bunch of resources. So one, every that, and maybe you guys already do, but I know people in my group who maybe weren't quite and because it's yours, and it's what you do and how you do it. So you don't just think in terms of how you do it, but think in terms of how you're conducting yourself and the kind of environment that you're helping to create around you. Important process artifacts too, but relationships as well. This is a tweet that I favorited over a year ago now. But, go up, or 1, work hard, 3, behind, 4, high road. So keep a sense of humor and don't be an asshole. For you, or you're thinking about a big transition, and so I'm just drew on when I was putting this together. These sessions, so you can see this later as well. And actually, comments really interesting on that one too. I think the Harvard business site. And that's some of the people who contributed. So the other, including the other presenters, Christina McDougall, who was the recruiter I spoke to, Mary manager, flexible, Daniel trusted colleague Jen, who coined work with precious, and the rest other presenters. So there's to end on that note. But if you have questions, or you're welcome to send me a tweet or send.
We appreciate it, and anyone who has a question can ask it at this point. You're welcome to unmute yourself, and or if you'd like to type it into the chat box, we can take it from there as well.
People are typing questions too, because
yeah, sure.
To me.
Yeah, we'll questions, and right now there are just a few comments and links in the chat box, but we'll get to know. Okay.
So great presentation, Kate. A little bit more about getting engaged in a local experience community and what's our for your moment.
Well, I think that's a good point. We do have a couple of good. We have UX Water, and the usefulness there is just helpful to learn some new things, but you also get to see them, and so there's organic stuff that goes on where you can hear the comments other people are making, and maybe there's some station because you're similar to have yourself if someone's grappling with already, and you can give you a sense of maybe where some of the jobs and opportunities are, since that can arise through these. Actually, so for myself, it was unexpected because I mentioned that that I was coming to Corey for an interview, and the organizer said, "Oh, well, I know people there. Do you want me to put in a good word?" And I said, "Yes, I would. Thank you." So I think it's, especially for a lone practitioner too, it's nice to have this sense of community if you don't have it in your own organization.
Any
Anybody?
Hi, Kanishi. I was just wondering if you had any comments on where you think UX might be heading with the advent of things like wearable computing, Google Glass, or the Oculus Rift, new types of displays.
Yeah, I was talking about, and it's hard not to think about wearable computing and that kind of thing. I think, like cross been something that's been discussed over the years, and I think that becomes even all the different growing with the wearable computing and some of that technology. So that's, I would just have to think about the different ways actions can be sliced and how we have to stitch them cohesive. I'm sewing actually, by the way, but
through the chat. Keep up with all the technology, software development, practices, etc. is overwhelming.
Sure. I think that's where knowing your focus is helpful, because you can put some of those things. I think tools that you know, should I be using Actor or UXPin or Balsamic or really asked about any of those tools when I started my current. I just I knew I started for the first time wireframes, and that's just what for it. You can if you think that you want a direction that requires certain awareness, then that's start building it up. But I would recommend actually talking to people who of the skill set that you do need, so that you can focus. I think it's fair to say that it is overwhelming. So that focus is really, really important.
Other questions? If you want to ask a question anonymously, you can send it to me privately in chat or now.
And I'm happy after the fact through Twitter or Gmail too. Corey can bug me anytime.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. It will be recorded and posted to the site soon. And appreciate your time. So thank you everyone. Time about up unless we have any other questions. Wrap. And thank you, Kate, and thank you everyone. We'll now. Thanks.